Now, this really starts the discussion. Number 15, discussion regarding conducting both special financial and operational audits. Is that going to be is Ms. Rawls going to do that?
No, this was placed on by Joe. Want to discuss this? We weren't prepared to talk about this, so.
All right, it's on discussion. Ms. Rawls, this is what we talked about having some presentations.
We weren't prepared to talk about
question.
15.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. Wasn't there, just because I'm not sure and y'all may know because, I mean, you set the agenda, but didn't we talk about having to have a conversation about auditors and addressing the whole issue as one big issue? Is that wasn't there I know we talked about a calendar of setting out when we had expectations.
I'll speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that, and Ms. Rose, you can correct me if I err, but one of the things that we're looking at is as we look in the October, November auditing calendar and we get our initial audit in, I think it'll be a good time at that point, especially as we look to renew our auditing contract, to get this board's vision on exactly how we hold accountable what our checks and balances are. And so I think if we take that time, I believe that I should report back to you on a calendar on when we hit certain events. And that way you can expect this is when we're going to address, the budget, this is when we're going to address textbooks, this is when we're going to address, reentry, the traditional things that we can put on there, and one of those will be the auditing systems. And I think whether it be through a workshop or whether it be at a meeting, talking about what this board would like to include in that, and we necessarily don't have to do an RFP. We do have groups that are on the pre-approved list, and we may look at it and see what's the criterion in which you want to select. So we don't have to go with the same firm, but to get your idea as a board on what those components would be, and then select from that list.
One thing I would add there, though, is I think I've personally had some concerns with the I shouldn't say the auditors, the audits that we have had. The last audit, when they presented it, they said they audited everything, every payment that was over $50,000. And I was concerned because I had a consulting contract that wasn't flagged in the audit and it hadn't been properly approved. So when the gentleman came back to the following meeting, he said, oh, well, we only audited purchase orders. And I'll get back to that. But he said, and then they wanted to charge us like $50,000 or something to actually audit the items over $50,000. So it kind of rubbed me the wrong way that we said we audited it, and then we come back and say, well, no, we didn't, and now we want more money to do it that way. And then the other thing on the purchase orders is that's the whole way you do things wrong, is not having a purchase order. So to say we only audit purchase orders is kind of backwards. And he said that was the state guideline. So where I'm going with this is I think that it would be good to either do a separate audit and not necessarily, it doesn't have to be one of the people on the approved list, or if we're going to go with the approved list, let's look at the issues we've had, because we've come across a number of contracts. The temporary help was another one where we weren't following things properly. And I think sooner than later is better, just because some of these are not only in the past. If we hadn't addressed that temporary help, it would still be going on. So that's just my 2 cents, is I'd like to see us, make sure that we're really getting a quality audit and not just meeting the bare minimum from the state.
Thank you. Mr. Lovett.
I'll give you one example that I just ran across, and that was from our last discussion here, but I went back and looked at the caulking contractor that we used on Chapin High School. He doesn't have a contractor's license. Okay? I mean, we need an operational audit. We need to know that we're dealing, and people need to be instructed as to how you take bids and okay, we have run across, when we talk to the auditor, I asked questions specifically about woman-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and so forth. And I was assured that we had met all these goals. And then the next meeting, when they came back, we hadn't met the goals. And we didn't even know what the goals were. I mean, we are not, I mean, if we're going to have auditors, we need to have real teeth in what we're doing. We don't trust, and I'll just put it to you this way, we didn't trust what we found because we are not auditors. This board is just business, some of us are business people. And it did not reflect well. We want to make sure that it's thorough. We want to make sure that when we find something that somebody doesn't come back to us and say, well, you owe us more money because you found something. I mean, this was, and this is in no reflection on our financial team because, quite frankly, these folks were new to the position. They weren't involved in any of this. I mean, they were handed this platter and said, here, you know, but we want to look at what they were handed, what Ms. Rawls was handed, and we want to feel good about the fact that a clean, and there's other examples that we need not go into here, but there are plenty of examples, and what we want to do is make sure that you're handed a clean slate that we know is right there. And we don't in any way, I'm not finding fault with the folks that work for this district. That's not what we're saying. But what we are saying is that we didn't get a quality situation.
You want to know what we're paying for and what the audit is going to, it's listed what we will expect for the audit. That was good discussion. Anything else on that? So we'll come back to that when y'all want to present something. And a workshop is a good idea. I think that's one thing I think we had talked about, Ms. Rawls. Item 16, I'd like to address board member requests for agenda items. This was an idea that we learned when Dr. Richardson gave us from the School Board Association, she gave us a workshop. And this is just a good time to have any board member that would like, and I know that our secretary, Ms. Gardner, appreciates that. She already has a form that she sends to people, but we thought this is good to bring it up at a meeting because you might think of something that night. But if I would ask the board if you'd like to either just give it to me in writing, here at the board, if there's something you'd like to request for an agenda item for the next meeting, I'll be glad to take that, and it would be always considered. But we thought if we put it as an item on here, that way everybody that's at the meeting has a chance to do that in case they don't, take the time to send a form or you think of it during the meeting over something we talked about. Okay? So that's on there. Yes, sure.
And I'm kind of going back to what I said when we did action item number 13, just out of deference to the whole board, we're not included into officers' meetings, so sometimes there's things that are on the agenda that we just don't know about, and it's hard to be prepared for that if we don't know. So I didn't know about that item, so I'm just asking that, and we had some emails, and I didn't know, so I'm just asking that we have.
Well, what I would say, I certainly will take I'll take that as constructive criticism. The years I've been on the board and not been an officer, when you get the packet, I always call the chair and ask, what's this about? Because I would certainly tell you. And then also, and I would expect you to do that because I think you should know. As chair, I don't think the chair's ever just called everybody and explained each item. I think you also, as a board, if there's anything that has to do with finances, I know that Ms. Rawls would love you to call her before the meeting and ask her about this presentation she may be giving, or Dr. G, or Mr. Beatonball. So I certainly am telling you here that you have the right to anytime call me, and I'm sure you could call.
Absolutely. That wasn't a dig. I was just saying, the public asked the questions too. So it was really the way that it was worded. I had an answer before we came in today. It was just, if you're going to put this on here, I'm just throwing my feedback. It's not a personal attack from anybody.
I'm not taking it as that. I think I called it constructive criticism, okay? But I do want, I think you should address things like that. I'm really glad you brought that up. But I can assure you the 3 officers would answer any of your questions if you don't understand something. Yes, ma'am.
Well,
I saw your hand.
I just want to clarify, because I let it go the first time, but I have to address this. The wording of this item is very, almost exactly the same as last meeting on the discussion agenda, and we talked about bullying, and then we moved it to the action agenda, and the wording's just very different. It says follow-up discussion regarding, instead of, and so I apologize if you didn't understand, but we're trying the best we can, and you did call us out on it, but I'm going to call you back on it. Were you at the last meeting? I mean, it was on the last agenda too, worded the same way. So
Well-
I think it's important, we're trying, and we do make mistakes because
get
we assume that since we talked about it last time and it was worded that way, that you would understand what it was this time. And so if you needed clarification, I would appreciate it if you did reach out to us, because maybe we do need to update the agenda before the meeting.
Be glad to. All right, thank you. Ladies, I think we've figured this out. Okay, yes, sir.
And this, Dr. Ross, I've only worked on the board with one other superintendent, okay? And the questions, and I know, Jen, you probably know what I'm going to ask. You know what I'm going to ask. Okay, but, you know, we were directed to always send everything through the superintendent and not call the chiefs directly, okay? And I know that in the past, other superintendents, because I had a wife who served as a board member, who had the opportunity to call the chiefs, okay? So how would you like us to do that? Do you want to channel everything through you, or do we have your authority or your, and I'm not talking about voluminous stuff, but I mean, if I see something and I have a question about something on something that's presented, should I call you, or should I call one of the chiefs?
I think it's best practice to always follow what we have in writing. And so board policy BDD outlines that the board members will contact the superintendent will direct it to the staff. And if we do that, if I'm not responsive, then that's on me, but I will make, the staff will be available to answer questions. But that way, there's no question about them now walking back to me and saying we had these conversations. I will not try to relay it. They will be, you know, if there's questions, I'm going to ask them to contact member whoever had it. And then in keeping with good practice, once information is requested from one member, it'll be given to all members. We only ask that if we have to create it, that we've been given the opportunity as a vote of the board, so that we will create it for all members. But if we follow that policy, I think that'll be good practice, and then the staff will know that this is the expectation.
Ms. Hammond?
Yes,
I'm
yes,
going to, on the agenda items, I will give you a list, but for the benefit of Dr. Ross and the staff that are here, I'd like to just go ahead and put one out there,
Okay.
and that would be like an update. Since we're so close to opening Piney Woods, maybe next time an update on where we are and are we going to be ready?
Okay, because the next board meeting is August what? 9th. Yeah, that would be great. That's right before school. Update on Pineywood. And if there's anybody else that wants, you already know one you want to add here, I'll be glad to put it down. Thank you, though. That's good. I wanted to go back to what you just said. I think that's a great idea, where if it's something that the staff has to collect and, or, you know, put into some kind of organization, then we'll vote it at the board. It's not just one person wanting some long, you know, report that takes staff a long time to get. But if it's something the whole board wants, it'll just be in the form of a motion, and then it knows that the majority wanted that time taken for that. So I like that. I bet y'all like number 17. Somebody give me that one.
Ms. Hammond, I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? There's a second, Ms. Gardner. Any discussion? 5-0. Thank you. Hey, it's not dark outside, people. Adjourned.